The signal came through on a quiet morning, completely ordinary except for the extraordinary message it carried. Astronomers at several observatories around the globe reported strange transmissions, patterns that didn't match the natural background noise of space. It was the type of event the scientific community had speculated about for decades but never truly expected. The coded signals were unmistakable, a message from an intelligent species. This wasn't the discovery humanity had hoped for. The message wasn't one of peace, exploration, or curiosity. It was a demand delivered with cold precision. The message, decoded by a team of global experts, came from an entity calling itself the Galactic Empire, an interstellar force that claimed dominion over countless worlds. They were here now, orbiting Earth, not to observe but to issue an ultimatum. The message was simple: surrender or face annihilation. It was the kind of threat that would have sent any lesser species into a panic, but Earth was not a planet to take kindly to ultimatums. The Empire's arrogance was palpable in their communication, underestimating humanity as a backward, insignificant species, not worth much more than a footnote in their conquests. They expected Earth to crumble, to kneel before the power and technology of a civilization that had spanned the stars for millennia. Humanity's leaders were quick to gather. Emergency sessions were called in every nation's highest chambers, and for once, there was unity. World leaders met in person and over secure communications, debating what their options were. Some advocated for diplomacy, reasoning that Earth was not equipped to resist an intergalactic force. Others, more pragmatic, insisted that surrender might buy time to learn from the Empire and eventually break free. Yet the majority understood the truth: there was no escaping a threat like this. Submission would not bring peace but subjugation, and humanity would become a mere resource to the Empire. The scientific community played a critical role in those discussions. The Empire's message had revealed glimpses of their technology: faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, shields, and a communication network that spanned light years. The gap between Earth's capabilities and theirs was vast. It wasn't just a question of firepower but of raw understanding. The Empire had likely spent millennia mastering physics humanity had barely begun to scratch the surface of. Yet Earth had something the Empire didn't account for: a history of surviving against impossible odds. From the Ice Age to global wars, humanity had repeatedly faced threats of extinction, and each time, they had adapted. It wasn't the strongest or the most advanced species that survived, but the most resilient, the most tenacious. As Earth's leaders convened, the message of surrender still hung in the air like a dark cloud. The Empire had given humanity 7 days to respond. There would be no negotiation, no back-and-forth dialogue, just submission or destruction. In the following hours, Earth's nations came to a decision. They would not bend the knee. Earth was not some backwater colony to be absorbed into the Empire's sprawling dominion. Humanity would fight, not because they expected to win, but because they refused to live under the shadow of any oppressor. As the countdown to the Empire's deadline ticked on, the world's greatest minds were brought together to craft a response. It would be a message sent not out of fear but defiance. The team of scientists, military strategists, and political leaders crafted every word carefully, knowing that this would be the most important transmission humanity had ever sent. The final response was not long. It didn't need to be. The message began with a simple statement of fact: humanity had survived extinction-level events before. The great asteroid that had wiped out the dinosaurs? Life had clawed its way back from the brink. The nuclear bombs that fell in past wars. Nations rebuilt, stronger than ever. Viruses, climate disasters, civil wars, none had broken the human spirit. The message emphasized Earth's brutal history, one of conflict, endurance, and survival. It wasn't just a planet of diverse ecosystems and cultures, but one that had been hardened by strife and perseverance. Then came the warning: Earth would not go quietly. Humanity had faced greater threats from within its own species, and they had learned to overcome them. The Empire might have advanced technology, but humans had learned to turn even the most destructive forces to their advantage. They were survivors, fighters, and no empire, no matter how vast, could strip them of that. The final words of the transmission were clear: Keep your distance from Earth, or learn the hard way why we are the most dangerous species you will ever encounter. When the message was sent, there was no doubt that the Empire would view it as a bluff. From their perspective, humans were little more than ants beneath a boot, easily crushed. But humans had faced long odds before, and each time they had survived, it was because they adapted. Earth wasn't a planet that relied on brute force alone. It relied on ingenuity, on finding weaknesses in the enemy's armor and exploiting them until victory was achieved. The Empire, for all its technological prowess, was arrogant. They couldn't see the fire in humanity's heart, the drive to survive no matter the cost. And so, Earth braced itself. The Empire's response, whatever form it took, was expected to be swift and brutal. But as the days passed, a strange calm settled over the planet. There was no panic in the streets, no mass hysteria. Instead, there was a grim determination. This was not the first time Earth had faced extinction, and it likely wouldn't be the last. But if the Empire thought they would conquer Earth as easily as they had other worlds, they were sorely mistaken. The countdown to the Empire's deadline continued, and as it ticked down, humanity prepared. It wasn't the preparations of a desperate species clinging to its last breath, but the resolve of a species that had faced death time and time again and refused to succumb. The Empire was coming, and Earth would be ready. The decision to send a message back to the Galactic Empire was not taken lightly. In the halls of power and the hidden war rooms of Earth, there was no illusion about the strength of the adversary they faced. The Galactic Empire spanned countless star systems, its reach extending across vast distances that Earth's own telescopes had never even dreamed of observing. Their technology, from faster-than-light travel to their planetary-scale weaponry, was beyond anything Earth had ever seen or even imagined. Yet, despite this overwhelming reality, humanity was determined to respond. The crafting of the message was meticulous, every word chosen to strike the right balance. It could not be weak, but neither could it be overly provocative. The goal was not to provoke the Empire into immediate action, but to send a clear, undeniable signal: humanity would not bow, and any attempt to subjugate Earth would come at a great cost. In a secure, undisclosed location, Earth's best diplomats, military strategists, and scientists huddled together, drafting the message that would be sent into the stars. There was no grand fanfare, no elaborate speeches. The tone was serious and deliberate, a stark contrast to the Empire's initial ultimatum. The central idea was to make it clear that humanity would stand its ground, but the message needed more than just defiance. It had to show that Earth was not simply a backwater planet waiting to be conquered, but a world with a history of resilience, adaptability, and survival in the face of insurmountable odds. The message started by addressing the Empire directly, acknowledging their presence and their superiority in terms of technological advancements. There was no point in denying the vast power gap between Earth and the Empire, but that was not the focus. The focus was on what made humanity unique, what the Empire might not fully grasp yet: the unbreakable human spirit. It described Earth's long and often violent history, how humanity had faced and survived countless threats, from natural disasters to self-inflicted wars. The message didn't shy away from Earth's darker moments. It spoke openly of the destruction humanity had faced, and in some cases caused. It was a history of struggle and survival, but always, without fail, humanity had adapted and emerged stronger. The message emphasized that humans were not strangers to extinction-level events. It pointed out that Earth had been nearly wiped clean by asteroids, pandemics, and wars, yet life had always persisted. Humanity had learned not just to endure but to thrive in the most hostile conditions. It was a history that showcased humanity's ability to innovate under pressure, to find ways to survive even when survival seemed impossible. As the message unfolded, it became clear that this was not just a warning, it was a declaration of intent. The final paragraphs were the most striking. "We may not have your technology," it said, "but we have something you cannot understand: our will to survive, our capacity to adapt, and our relentless determination. We have learned to turn even our greatest threats into opportunities. If you come to conquer us, you will find that we are not a people who submit. We are a people who fight back, And we will make you regret ever thinking otherwise. There was no boasting, no false bravado. The words were carefully measured, meant to make the Galactic Empire understand that Earth would not be an easy target. The message ended with a direct warning. Keep your distance from Earth. If you choose to approach, you will learn why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. With the message crafted, it was broadcast into space using every available means. The most powerful radio waves and encrypted signals were sent to the coordinates the Empire had provided, ensuring that the Galactic Empire received humanity's defiant response. Now came the waiting. The leaders of Earth knew the chances of the message being taken seriously were slim. The Galactic Empire, after all, had already shown its disdain for humanity. From their perspective, humans were barely more than ants, primitive and easily crushed. But what the Empire did not understand was that humanity thrived under pressure. This wasn't the first time Earth had faced the threat of annihilation, and it likely wouldn't be the last. However, it would be the first time humanity had faced such a threat from beyond its own planet. The hours stretched into days, and still, there was no response from the Empire. Tension gripped the planet. While governments urged calm, behind closed doors preparations were ramping up. Earth's military forces were on high alert, ready for whatever the Empire might send. Civil defense systems, long dormant, were activated, and citizens were urged to remain vigilant. But in those tense days, something remarkable happened. Instead of panic, there was a strange sense of unity among the people of Earth. In a way that had not been seen in decades, humanity came together. The usual conflicts, the petty squabbles between nations, seemed to fade into the background as the reality of the situation set in. For the first time in generations, the entire planet was focused on a single goal: survival. In the underground bunkers and military installations scattered across the globe, plans were being drawn up for what would happen if the Galactic Empire did indeed decide to attack. Conventional warfare was out of the question. Earth had no chance in a head-to-head fight. Instead, strategists focused on asymmetric tactics. Hackers, guerrilla forces, and unconventional weaponry were prepared. Every vulnerability, every weakness in the Empire's communication systems and technology would be exploited. The message from Earth had been sent. Now, the waiting continued. The question that lingered in everyone's minds wasn't if the Empire would respond, but how. Would they take Earth's warning seriously, or would they proceed with their plans to subjugate the planet? Either way, humanity had made its stance clear. Earth was not going to roll over and surrender. There was no illusion about what was at stake. The coming days would decide not just the fate of Earth but the future of humanity. But for now, in those quiet moments after the message had been sent, there was a sense of calm. No matter what happened next, humanity had chosen to stand its ground, and that choice alone gave them strength. Humanity had sent its warning, and with it, a clear declaration of defiance. But now, the reality set in. Words alone wouldn't stop the Galactic Empire, and everyone on Earth knew it. The message was sent not to intimidate but to buy time, to prepare. Earth wasn't ready for an invasion, at least not by traditional standards. Its weapons were a relic of local skirmishes and defense, not of galactic war. But where humanity lacked in technology, they made up for it with something the Empire didn't have: unpredictability. The preparations began in earnest. Behind closed doors, governments shifted to a wartime footing. Military leaders gathered their top strategists, scientists, and experts from every field imaginable. There was no time for grand speeches or public declarations. Everything had to be done with precision and urgency. The Empire could be weeks away, or days, or even hours. No one knew exactly when they would arrive, but the assumption was clear: they were coming. Humanity's strength had always been in its adaptability, and this time was no different. The best military minds knew that a conventional war would be suicide. Earth's defense systems, no matter how advanced by their own standards, were nothing compared to what the Galactic Empire likely possessed. Their ships could probably level cities from orbit without even entering the atmosphere. Their weapons would make nuclear missiles look like toys. But humanity had something the Empire didn't seem to understand: ingenuity born out of necessity. The military focus quickly shifted to asymmetrical warfare. If Earth couldn't meet the Empire in open battle, they would fight from the shadows. The plan was not to win through brute force but to make the cost of invasion too high for the Empire to stomach. This was going to be a fight on Earth's terms. They would use every bit of knowledge, every bit of experience they had learned from centuries of conflict, to strike back. The first step was to study the weaknesses of the Empire, or at least what could be assumed as weaknesses. Earth's best hackers were brought in to develop systems that could break into the Empire's communications network. Their task was monumental, decoding and disrupting alien technology far beyond human comprehension, but this was no ordinary team. These were the same people who had broken into the most secure systems on Earth, those who could exploit even the smallest crack in a defense. They were confident that if there was a weakness in the Empire's tech, they would find it. Alongside the cyber warfare efforts, there was also a physical preparation. Earth's forces began fortifying strategic locations, underground bunkers, hidden military bases, and command centers deep beneath the surface. Civilians were quietly evacuated from key urban areas, moved into shelters that had been hastily repurposed from old Cold War relics. Humanity wasn't just preparing to fight back, they were preparing to survive. The engineers got to work immediately. Satellites were repositioned to act as both eyes and weapons, their outdated technology upgraded with makeshift defense systems designed to at least slow down any incoming attack. Earth's most advanced anti-air and missile systems were recalibrated to aim for targets far outside their usual range, knowing they might only get one chance to fire before being overwhelmed. Underground, deep in the heart of the planet's largest military complexes, scientists were working around the clock on last-minute projects that had been in development for years but never fully tested. Energy shields, EMP bombs, and prototype weapons systems that had been shelved due to budget constraints or safety concerns were now suddenly the top priority. It wasn't that anyone expected these makeshift defenses to hold off the Empire completely, but every second counted. The longer they could resist, the more time they had to develop their next move. At the same time, the world's top minds were working on misinformation and psychological warfare. Humanity's resilience in battle had always been as much mental as physical. Earth's leaders knew that if they could confuse the Empire, make them second-guess their tactics or feel they were walking into a trap, it could buy precious time. Teams of hackers and cyber warfare specialists coordinated a massive global effort to penetrate the Empire's communication systems. The idea wasn't just to listen in but to spread disinformation, to create chaos among the Empire's ranks. If they could disrupt the Empire's chain of command, even for a few minutes, it might be enough to prevent coordinated attacks, or at the very least, slow them down. Every government on Earth played their part, pooling resources in a way that hadn't been seen in centuries. There were no borders, no divisions now. It was a planetary effort, and humanity's survival depended on everyone working together. Scientists in one part of the world would develop a new defense system, only for it to be immediately shared with teams on the other side of the planet who could test, refine, and deploy it in record time. Engineers, physicists, chemists, and software developers all worked hand in hand with the military in a frantic race against time. While Earth's military was preparing for the worst, ordinary people were preparing in their own way. The news of the impending invasion had not yet gone public, but word was spreading. In every major city, whispers of what was coming ran through the streets. It wasn't panic, though. There was something else, a sense of determination. Humanity had always been at its best when faced with the impossible. And now, faced with a threat beyond anything they had ever imagined, people found a strange sense of calm in their collective defiance. Makers and engineers in garages, hackers in basements, and scientists in underfunded labs across the globe were innovating in ways they had never done before. New solutions, weapons, and defenses were being cobbled together from whatever materials they could find. The energy of the underground effort was almost palpable. Even though many of these makeshift solutions would never see action, they symbolized what made humanity different from any other species in the galaxy: their ability to fight with whatever they had, no matter the odds. The Empire's arrival was expected soon, but the exact timing remained unclear. In the final days before their predicted appearance, Earth entered a strange state of readiness. It was a quiet tension that ran beneath the surface of everyday life, visible in the way people moved a little faster, worked a little harder. Everyone knew something was coming, and when it did, they would be ready. This was humanity's defining moment, the culmination of everything they had learned in their turbulent history. If the Empire thought Earth would fall without a fight, they were wrong. Earth would fight, not with the expectation of winning a conventional war, but with the knowledge that their strength lay in their ability to outthink, outlast, and outmaneuver any adversary, no matter how powerful. They were ready. The moment had come. The Galactic Empire, vast and powerful, arrived at Earth's doorstep with their fleet, casting massive shadows over the planet's surface. It was a sight no human had ever witnessed, ships so large they seemed to blot out the stars, brimming with technology that humanity couldn't hope to match. But even as the Empire's forces began their approach, there was no fear, no retreat. Earth was prepared in ways the Empire could not imagine. The first wave of the attack began as expected, a show of overwhelming force designed to terrify and subdue. Massive energy weapons fired from the Empire's ships, targeting the satellites that encircled Earth. The plan was to cripple Earth's communications instantly, cutting the planet off from itself and any external support it might hope for. But humanity had anticipated this. Earth's satellites, which the Empire believed would be easy targets, were shielded in ways the Empire had not predicted. Several satellites, pre-programmed with fail-safe protocols, detonated as soon as they were hit, sending out powerful EMP blasts that disrupted the Empire's initial attack systems. The Empire's communications momentarily faltered, their systems scrambling to recalibrate. It wasn't a crippling blow, but it was enough to slow them down. Earth's forces had bought precious time, but everyone knew that wouldn't be enough. The real fight was just beginning. On the ground, Earth's military and defense systems activated in full. Long-range missiles were launched from hidden bases deep underground, targeting the Empire's ships. These missiles weren't designed to do massive damage, no one believed they could. But they were meant to confuse and overwhelm the Empire's defenses. Each missile carried not just explosives but countermeasures, scrambling the Empire's targeting systems and forcing them to use precious resources to intercept. It was a war of attrition, one where Earth knew it had to make every second count. As the Empire's ships began their descent, Earth's cyber warfare teams launched their own offensive. They had spent days infiltrating the Empire's communications network, and now they unleashed the full force of their cyber attacks. Firewalls were breached, systems were overwhelmed with false data, and entire portions of the Empire's fleet found themselves unable to communicate with each other. Orders were delayed or lost in the chaos, causing confusion among the Empire's ranks. Still, the Empire was no stranger to war. They quickly adapted, recalibrating their systems and countering Earth's cyber attacks with their own sophisticated defenses. Their ships, despite the initial setbacks, continued their approach. It was only a matter of time before they landed, and when they did, humanity knew it would be a fight for survival. But Earth was not ready to concede yet. The guerrilla tactics that had been in preparation for days went into full effect. Every city, every town, every inch of territory that the Empire sought to occupy became a battlefield. Unmanned drones, remotely controlled by teams of operators hidden deep underground, launched hit-and-run attacks on the Empire's landing forces. Bridges, roads, and key infrastructures were rigged to collapse or explode the moment the Empire attempted to use them. Meanwhile, the misinformation campaign that had been carefully constructed by Earth's intelligence agencies began to take root. Fake transmissions were sent out, giving the Empire false intel about Earth's defenses, leading them into traps set by the human forces. Empire commanders, struggling to make sense of the situation, found themselves unable to trust their own sensors and data. This was not a war of firepower, it was a war of wits, and humanity was proving to be a far more cunning adversary than the Empire had anticipated. The ground battles were brutal. The Empire, with its advanced weaponry and elite soldiers, made swift progress in some areas, but in others, they found themselves bogged down by Earth's unconventional tactics. Human soldiers, armed with little more than determination and makeshift weapons, ambushed Empire patrols, cutting off supply lines and forcing the Empire's troops into prolonged engagements. Every inch of territory they gained came at a steep cost. For the first time in its long history of conquest, the Empire was forced to acknowledge that they had underestimated their enemy. They had assumed Earth would fall quickly, that humanity's defiance was nothing more than posturing. But now, faced with a relentless opponent that fought with everything it had, they began to question their strategy. Even from orbit, the Empire's ships were not safe. Earth's engineers had devised a plan to turn the planet's own atmosphere into a weapon. Massive nuclear explosions were detonated high above the surface, creating an artificial electromagnetic storm that scrambled the Empire's ship systems once again. For brief moments, the Empire's fleets were blind, unable to coordinate their attacks or communicate with their ground forces. It was in these moments that Earth's forces struck hardest, using the element of surprise to their advantage. Despite these successes, the war was far from won. The Empire, with its vast resources and superior technology, continued to press forward. Earth's defenses, while formidable, were stretched to their limits. Entire cities were evacuated as the Empire's forces advanced, and in some areas, the human resistance was on the verge of collapse. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity refused to give in. They fought not for victory but for survival, for the chance to show the Empire that Earth was not a prize to be taken easily. As the battles raged on, the leaders of the Galactic Empire began to realize something they had never considered before. Earth was not like the other worlds they had conquered. Humanity's resistance was not based on technology or military might, but on something far more difficult to quantify: sheer willpower. No matter how many ships they deployed, no matter how many soldiers they sent, humanity always found a way to strike back, to resist. The Empire's commanders, now bogged down in a war they had thought would be over in days, were forced to reconsider their approach. They had planned to subdue Earth with overwhelming force, but instead, they found themselves fighting a drawn-out conflict, one that was costing them far more resources than they had anticipated. The longer the battle dragged on, the more the Empire began to question whether this small, stubborn planet was worth the cost. In the end, the Galactic Empire made a decision it had never made before. Faced with a species that refused to submit, that fought with every ounce of strength and ingenuity it had, the Empire withdrew. It was not a victory for Earth in the traditional sense. The Empire had not been defeated militarily, but they had been forced to recognize that humanity was not an enemy to be taken lightly. As the last of the Empire's ships left Earth's orbit, humanity stood battered but unbroken. They had faced an enemy far more powerful than themselves, and yet, through sheer determination and resourcefulness, they had survived. The message they had sent to the Empire all those days ago had proven true: Earth was not a planet to be conquered. It was a planet that fought back, and that, above all else, made it dangerous.